Hello and welcome back to On Point HQ, and in this video I'm going to show you how I paint one of my favourite units from my Australian bolt action army, and it's the Papuan Infantry Battalion. They're so evocative of that era or that theatre of the Second World War out in the Pacific jungles of Papua New Guinea. I just think Warlord did an excellent job in this range, and they're painted slightly differently to the rest of the army, as you can imagine. So what I'm going to do in this video is just show you how I go about doing it, again like with previous videos, quite quickly, using very limited colours, washes and basic highlights. On the screen now there'll be a couple of photographs of my completed Papuans that I've finished as part of the Australian Army. I've got an 8-man infantry section, and also as stretcher bearers on the very awesome medic team that Warlord Games have produced. I absolutely love this model, and I've mentioned in the previous video how much I enjoy painting it. It's a wonderfully evocative model, and I enjoyed it very much. So what I'm going to do is, in a similar vein to my other how I paint videos, rather than it being a standard tutorial where I sit and paint for an hour, it's going to be me painting by section, outlining what paints I've used, what washes and what highlights, taking some photographs and coming back after each section to show you exactly what I've done. That appears to work, and it works for me as well. That way you're not listening to me harp on nonsense for a good hour, because that would get boring very quickly, let's be honest about it. So let's talk about the prep for this. So as with the previous video where I painted an Australian infantryman, this is going to be a single figure rather than a section of 10 that I normally do, and this is going to be a bog standard trooper armed with a rifle. So what prep have I done here? So as with most of my Australians, this has been undercoated in a coat of Vallejo burnt umber. And then what I've done with previous models, I would then go in and paint the flesh first individually. With this, because the flesh constitutes about 50% of the whole model, a quick way of doing this is just to cover the whole model in the flesh colour, and I've done this. For the flesh for these guys, I use SS Middle Brown from Vallejo. It's slightly lighter than the burnt umber, but it works really well with the Agrax Earthshade wash that I'll use later in the process. So the whole figure has been covered in the SS Middle Brown. So that's the flesh done. That's one whole part of the figure done in one fell swoop using one big brush. So you can't go wrong with that. What I'm going to do now is go in and paint the... Now I've done some research and I can't find the traditional name for this, so I'm going to call it a loincloth. I'm probably way out with that, but it's what he's wearing on his lower half. It's again a loincloth / skirt type thing. If anyone knows the proper name, please pop it in the comments below, because I'd be very interested to find out what it's called. I did quite a bit of research and I just could not find the name. Maybe my Google skills were letting me down somewhat, but no, couldn't find it. So what I'm going to do is this will be painted using Vallejo ivory. What I normally do is drop a little bit of brown into that just to bring it down. It's quite a bright colour, and by dropping a bit of brown, brings it down to a slightly kind of ruddy look, and this works well with the wash later. So what I'm going to do now is go away and apply this to the loincloth, and I'll come back and show you what I'm doing next. See you soon. Righty, so that's me back, and that's the first stage of the figure completed. On the screen now there'll be a couple of photographs of exactly what I've been doing. So like I mentioned in the previous segment, this part is all about painting the loincloth that he's wearing, and this was painted using Vallejo ivory. The actual brown that I added to it was just two little drops of Vallejo German Camo Black Brown. It's not really noticeable on the figure, but it works. Rather than just using the straight ivory, it's the actual colour now. It's still very very ivory looking, but it has got a slight brown tinge to it. Again, this will work well with the Agrax Earthshade wash later on in the process. What I would always advise is when you're putting this on, I mean, it took me 4 coats to get a good coverage. I think if you just went on with 1 or 2 really thick coats, it's gonna make the model look bad. Again, this is just painting 101, as I've mentioned in other videos. But yeah, especially with such a bright colour as well, what I did was really diluted it, and went, I think it was literally 4 or 5 coats, just went round and round and round, and then tidied it up at the end. And I like this colour though, it's got on really quite well, and there's no problems with coverage. So the next stage is equipment. Now, very much like the Australian infantryman that I painted in the previous video, this dude is not carrying an awful lot of equipment. All we've got to paint is his webbing, his water bottle and his rifle, and the colours I'll be using for that. So as with other rifles that I paint, I use German Camo Black Brown for the rifle. For his pouches, with ammo pouches and his webbing, I will be using Vallejo Russian Uniform Green World War II. And lastly, his water bottle, I'll be using Vallejo Chocolate Brown. Once those colours are down, that's the miniature almost done. Oh, one last thing, his hair. What I'll be doing is painting his hair using Vallejo Dark Rubber. I think just using straight black would be too stark for the model, so I always use grey, and I'll apply it and ink wash that later on when I get to that stage. But yep, so only 4 more colours to be applied. I will go away and do that now, and I'll see you in the next part. So see you soon. And welcome back, and that's more or less the model finished. So as I outlined in the previous segment, the rifle has been done in German Camo Black Brown, the pouches and equipment such as the webbing in Russian Uniform Green World War II, and finally his water bottle is been done in Vallejo Chocolate Brown. There'll be some photographs on the screen now just to show you what this looks like. And of course I've gone in and used dark rubber to paint the dude's hair as well. And that's it, pretty much ready for the wash. Now I use quite a few washes, because used correctly you can get through a lot of figures really quickly. They create depth, recesses and shadow, and they've been an absolute time saver for me over the past 18 months or so. With this, what I'm going to do is you'll be using 2 washes. The first is Agrax Earthshade. That'll be going across the entire model. As with most models I paint, Agrax Earthshade comes into the equation at some point or another. It's just one of those things that's always in my arsenal of painting bits and pieces that I use. So that'll be going across the entire model. What I'll then be doing is, again, using Reikland Fleshshade, and I'll be applying this just using a smaller brush, but just over the flesh. And again, it just brings a nice hue to the to the flesh colour, and it works well with the middle brown that's gone on as that flesh base colour. Just one point when applying Agrax Earthshade to this type of model that I've always found. Normally I'd get the big brush and I'd slap it all over, and that'd be that. What I tend to do when I'm doing the Papuans is I water this down significantly, because too much will destroy that nice loincloth colour, and you don't want that. If you spent the time putting a nice even coat on, you don't want the wash to completely nouse it up. So what I tend to do is water it down quite significantly. I think you could even probably, if you've got anything like this, Lamy medium, you could even use that. I tend to avoid this. I mean, it's a good medium, but with Agrax it kind of gunges up a little bit, I found. But it's still an option out there for you to use. What I tend to do though is just water the Agrax down quite significantly, and put on 2 or 3 layers of that. This will settle in all the recesses, and it won't ruin that nice ivory loincloth colour you've got there. So I'll go away now, put those washes over them, And then once they're dry, I will come back, take some photographs to show you what it looks like, and after that it's on to the highlighting. So see you soon. Welcome back, and that is both washes fully dry, and the figure looks something like this. So photographs on the screen now. Hopefully what you'll see is that the watered down Agrax wash has created shadow and depth on the ivory loincloth, but it's not destroyed that colour. It's given it a more worn, lived in look. That sounds pretty awful, actually, a lived in loincloth. That sounds but I'll move on from that. Right, compose yourself. Right, so the Agrax Earthshade wash has gone over that. The whole figure. I then use a smaller brush to use Reikland Fleshshade just to apply it to the flesh. It's fully dried, and I'm really happy with how that's turned out. There's been no excessive pooling. There's some really good shadow on the skin and the equipment, and yeah, that's worked really quite well. So what I'm going to do now is highlights. Anyone that's, again, has watched any of my how I paint videos know that with highlights I concentrate mainly on really basic highlights, rather than the multi-layers that you'd go into if you were competition painting or something like that. My aim is to get them from the box to the tabletop as quickly as possible, and minimal highlighting allows me to do this. So what will I be doing with this? For the flesh, I'll be going back in with the middle brown, and applying this again just to the places you'd normally highlight, so that the brow, bridge of the nose, chin, cheeks, and the backs of the hands. I also pick out the knees and just some of the raised areas of the arms and the legs as well. Again, not too much, so don't go overboard at this stage. For the ivory, I'll just be using again the same ivory colour, just by itself with no other paints added to it. And again, this will be diluted so as not to make the highlights too stark. And again, Russian uniform green and the chocolate brown with just a dab of Vallejo sunny skin tone just to make it a bit brighter, and it makes the highlights pop a lot more, but again, not be too bright or outlandish. At this stage I'll also go in as well and use Vallejo gunmetal grey to pick out the metallic parts in the rifle, and then apply a very thin wash of Nuln oil to the metallics just to dull them, and then that will be the figure completely finished. So I'm going to go away and do that. Once I come back, I will show you the completed figure. So see you soon. Hello and welcome back, and that is the figure fully finished. So as normal, pictures on the screen now of the fully completed model. Yeah, I'm really quite happy with how this has turned out. For very little time at all. Again, probably in the same length of time with the Australian Infantry, about 25 minutes all in painting time. And again, I think I've achieved relatively just tabletop standard miniatures, which is what I know I keep harping on about this, but this is what I aim for constantly, is tabletop standard. It's getting those figures from the box to the tabletop as soon as possible, but also enjoying your painting as well. I mean, I'm not deriding anyone that spends hours and hours painting miniatures. I'd love to do that, but I like seeing them finished. But that's the fully completed figure, and like I said, I'm more than happy with it the way it's turned out. This will be added to the section of 8 that I currently have. What I'm doing at the moment is, with the Australian project, they were all painted in units of 8, except the engineers who were in a unit of 6. I'm taking additional figures and expanding every single unit in the army to 10, so we can run them as either regular or veteran, and depending on the size of the game or the scenario, etc. So this will be added to the 8-man section I currently have, and I currently have one more left from the box or the blister to increase that section to a full 10-man complement. I'm not far from finishing it. I'm and I'll do a video about everything that I've painted for my Australians when that's all been completed. But yeah, that's another how I paint video. Again, it's not going to win any competitions, it's not intended to, it's all about getting figures to the table as soon as possible. But I hope you found it useful. Just as an aside, while I was painting today, generally pottering around my desk, I was listening to the latest Oddcast from the two fat laddies. I've got to say I'm very surprised that Big Rich doesn't like real ale. He strikes me as a real ale gent, but no, I was massively wrong with that assumption. But yeah, if you're not checked out, check out the two fat laddies' latest Oddcast. It's really quite entertaining. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. But once again, that's the figure finished, and I hope you found it useful. There's probably bits and pieces that you can take away and make your own or use on your own figures. But if you've got any comments or questions, like always, just pop them in the section below, and I'll certainly respond to all comments or questions. But thanks again for watching, and as always, take care, may your dice roll well, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye bye for now.